Today, what we're talking about is 5 things you're probably paying too much for right now. What we're going to be covering, some quick wins to cut costs without sacrificing quality. Hey guys, welcome back to the Restaurant Accelerator podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Scott, multi-unit restaurant owner for almost 20 years, and I now own Ownership, which helps restaurant owners increase their sales, increase their bottom line, and help them have more free time with their family. So today we've got Nathan on. He is our, I don't even know what his title is anymore, but he comes up with a bunch of cool stuff for us to help restaurant owners with as part of our team. He has had about 7 locations under his control, 700 employees, something like 90 million in sales per annum or per year. So Nathan, let's dive in. Let's go with number 1. What we've got is everything to do with food. So let's talk about food, because who doesn't want their food costs to be lower, right?
If you don't, then you're wrong. It's kind of a simple way. So here's the thing about food. So what are you probably paying too much for? What people don't understand, and this is a little bit more focused on, let's say, distribution. So if you're getting products from your distributor, if you are bringing in, let's say, Hellmann's mayonnaise, we'll just use mayonnaise as an example. So you're buying mayonnaise from them. If you're buying it from US Foods, Cisco, wherever you're getting it from, what you don't often understand, or what operators don't know, is that distributor probably has those core elements of food products in brand. So it might be, let's say, a Cisco brand mayonnaise. Now you might think, oh, that's some kind of weird bargain brand mayonnaise. I'm not going to buy that. Here's the secret. Distributors don't make anything. They have preferred vendors that make their products. So if their preferred vendor is Hellmann's, guess who makes their mayonnaise? Hellmann's. It's Hellmann's mayonnaise, just in a Cisco jar. The thing about branded products is that as a distributor, when they source out manufacturers to make their branded product, their Cisco mayonnaise in this example, they create purchase agreements across all of their distribution centers, which means they get really great pricing. Really great pricing. And what those distributors call that gap between, say, common pricing and their brand pricing is they call it inside money or marketing money. So they charge what big brands charge sometimes, but their margins are way bigger on it. So they're making more money off their branded products. If you put the pressure on them and you move to branded products, they have more money on the inside to discount that down below that major brand. So that's just one example of how you can, reach out to your distributors and connect, find out what their preferred vendors are, who they are, what branded products they have, and stop buying, Hellmann's mayonnaise and buy Cisco mayonnaise, just as an example. Yep. Same thing for oil, fryer oil, vegetable oil, olive oil. Man, it's across the board. It's in their best interest to source the volume on some of these kind of core elements and get that price. So look into it and get it. One more piece on distribution that I can't not say it is, if you do not have a prime vendor agreement with a distribution company, and what that fundamentally is we'll say, I promise to buy 80% of my yearly purchases from you, or 60%, or whatever the agreement comes out to be. I promise to buy those. This is what that volume looks like. They can then, knowing what your volume and what that income to them is going to be, they're going to give you really great deals, because they can plan themselves financially just like anybody else. It's like taking reservations, right? I know I'm going to get these sales, so I know what my labor is going to be. They have the same issue. So if you can start to get preferred vendor agreements, you're going to be eligible for other things like rebate programs. Yeah. So something like 2 to 4% back on all your purchases. That's 2 to 4% saved on your food cost if you're buying your food from there. That's 2 to 4% savings on your cleaning supplies, your chemicals, your paper supplies, everything you get from them, you're going to be getting a little kickback.
I used to get 5% from some of my suppliers, which was great. That was an extra little check that came in, and I was like, "Woo, here we go, a little shopping spree for Andrew." Or you could save it, but you know what I mean. It's nice. It's a nice chunk of money between 4 locations. Yeah, hell yeah.
Oh yeah, it adds up. And then here's the thing on that is, you can do that, or you can buy from 5 different places, and you can shop around and try and find the $1 saving on a bag of carrots. You can do that. You can spend that time and then have to drive around and pick them up. But here's the thing. Even if you spend more on those products at a distribution center, you're still going to save more money on it. That's just, I could show you the math on it, but you've got people now just ready to receive, not outsourcing and pricing. There's a reason why multi-unit, large chains, big players don't shop around for best pricing, because they can set it up, they can make it predictable, and they can build their profit model around those costs. And people are in the store doing what the store needs to be done. So that's what I would say on that space: distribution and food pricing.
Yeah, and here's the thing: when you're talking to your suppliers, if you never ask for a discount, worst thing they can say is no, right? What can you guys do for me? I'm here between Cisco and U.S. Foods, or whatever the case might be. Okay, what can you guys do for me that they can't? What are the things you can move on, or is there an agreement, or is there a kickback, or what can we do based on my volume? You tell me, and then they are going to work for that. And so I think it's a huge thing. Now, talking about food, I find a lot of places that owners have a lot of money tied up is sitting right there on their shelves.
Yes, inventory in my mind is number 2. If we don't have an order guide, a plan to order, and I don't mean a distribution order guide, right? So when you say, Cisco gave me an order guide, that's not an order guide. That's their online ordering system. That's their platform to make it easy for you to order. An order guide is a list of all your products, the pack sizes, with PARs based on your current sales volume. How many cases of apples do I need, right? So what I mean about high inventory is if we are not buying appropriate to our current volume, and we buy too many cases of apples and they're sitting in our cooler, we only buy apples every 3 weeks. Well, guess what? You've tied up your cash flow. You've tied up the money that you should have sitting in the bank into cases of apples. And when you have too much inventory of anything, more waste, more spillage, more over portioning, and even theft is absolutely going to happen.
Yep.
And if you have an extra 20 grand in inventory that you shouldn't have, but you can't make payroll, well, wouldn't it be nice to have that 20 grand back in your bank account so you can make payroll?
Yeah. Whose bank account do you want it in? Your suppliers or yours? It's really the question. Right. Now, that doesn't mean we should be running out of stuff, but what Nathan is saying here is that on your order guide, you actually want to say, okay, over the last 4 weeks, how many cases did we order each time and how many did we have left? Now, I know a lot of owners are thinking, this sounds like a lot of work, but I will tell you what's more important than literally keeping thousands of dollars more in your bank account, right? Mm-hmm. There's very few things, like why would we spend more when we don't need to? Because I used to have managers that when we first trained them how to order, I swear this is like the process, we would teach them how to do it, then we would monitor them doing it, then we would check it over, then their first order by themselves, I swear every single one of them over ordered on just about everything, because again, they didn't know what the purchase history was on those items. So they're like, I don't want to run out of that, I don't want to run out of that. And so all of a sudden we're getting this $10,000 bill from Cisco, and I'm like, hey, hold on a second, that's an issue. And so then, like, literally, there's a point where our walk-in freezer, there was so full we couldn't even fit anything in it. Like, we couldn't even walk into it anymore. It was so stocked. And I'm like, what the hell is happening here? So the point is, then we'd have our regional come back and be like, hey, you over-ordered. You got to cut that down. And so then they would under order, and then we'd end up running out of stuff, and then they would kind of figure it out. But here's the thing. That was a mental process. And as volumes changed, they didn't change the PARs. They didn't change those things. So they were over reliant on themselves. And some of the managers weren't that good at doing that. And some of, like, I would say the same thing about me. Like, it took me longer to understand some of the ebbs and the flows. But if you have an order guide system where you can keep those things off the shelves, I loved when we had overspent and I all of a sudden would see my bank account jump up because the next Cisco order was like right down to the minimums that we had to place.
We didn't
it
even
was
have
beautiful.
To place an order this week.
I know. It's literally, we just didn't place an order. Or, okay, instead of doing 2 orders, we're doing 1 this week. I'm like, great. So then all of a sudden there's more money in the account. Then and money is like the oil in a car, right? It just keeps all the gears moving. Like that's it needs to be there in order to keep doing it. So, all right. So that's inventory. So if you are not tracking that and seeing your usage and adjusting your PARs based on your usage over a, say 4-week period, that's something we need to get in place right away. All right. So now, what's the other biggest expense? We talked about food. There's another big one.
Labor. I don't think I've ever met an owner or operator who didn't just say their labor was too high. I don't think anybody has ever said, my labor is just great. It's perfect. I love it where it is. Certainly not kitchen labor, right? It's always the kitchen. Food's too high and the kitchen's getting paid too much. So here's the thing about labor. it's not always just about the percentage, and it's not always about the dollars spent. If you want to really move the needle on your labor, look at productivity. And that almost sounds counterintuitive, because we might be saying something like, hey, your labor might be 27%, but what's your productivity ranking? And what is that? And on what days and at what times are your productivity at their peaks? And how do we replicate those peaks? So,
well, because think about it this way, like you can actually be on target for your labor cost number and be understaffed most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's possible, because you could be wildly overstaffed at other times, and that would all of a sudden mean it when really it should have been lower. Or you can have it way higher, and just like your numbers can be. I'll just give you an example. When we started looking at our labor, we started tracking it on a daily basis. And I would say Mondays, for example, if you overstaff by a couple shifts on a Monday, when it's typically one of our lowest volume days of the week, that's going to skew all of your percentages. So maybe that one's running at 30% when maybe your Friday's running at 15, when we probably need more staffing on the Friday, the productivity, we're giving bad service, the wait times are too long, but on Monday, everyone's just sitting back, playing PS5 in the back. Now, I've never actually seen that happen. Someone once played a Nintendo DS in the bathroom. That was probably one of the funny instances I've seen. But point is, you could be way overstaffed. People are there doing nothing, because also they're not trying to prep too much more in advance, because they're, they meet their power levels. They don't go over it. They just, people just slow down their work ethic. And actually, when we talk to productivity, well, number one, you got to go and actually measure it. You should be going hour by hour, day by day, to find out where your productivity is, which is basically, your person divided by like each individual employee that's working at that time divided by your sales. That will give you a number, which would be your sales per person hour, right? So that will give you an idea of what the productivity is, and maybe where you're overstaffed or understaffed, or even understanding what you can do at the peak. So how come we're not doing that in our slower times? But here's the other thing too. One of the dangers of overstaffing is, say you needed 2 people in the kitchen and you put 3 in, what happens? I'll give you one hint, and I'm moving my right hand in a talking motion for everyone who's listening audio only. Everyone starts to talk more. You would think that 3 people can get done more than 2. I would argue that 2 people properly staffed can do more than 3 on a period where you only need 2. Right? Because that second person slows everybody down. So instead of everybody working at 100% of their effort, all of a sudden everybody's working at 60% effort, and that just ends up being less than, it ends up being 180% if you want to do the math. 60 is 180 instead of 200%, which would have been 2 people working full out. So like having a third person when you don't need it can actually be really detrimental to your bottom line and to the productivity. Because who here has ever seen it in their restaurant where the labor is over by 3-4% and all the cleaning duties and the daily stuff doesn't get done? Why is that? It's because you're overstaffed that it's not getting done, because too many people slow everything down. Is the weirdest thing. When you have on-target labor and your targets properly set and you're staffed properly using these productivity methods to make sure you're where you should be for the majority of the time, more gets done than if you overspend on labor, because overspending actually, just clogs up the whole machine. So it's an interesting thing. Okay. Anything else to add on that one before we move on?
I do want to say one thing on that. So here's the thing. Productivity, in my mind, and labor scheduling, forecasting, planning your labor, the whole 9 yards. Here's where most people fall down. I have to schedule everybody on Friday. I have to. What if we get busy? Okay. Are you going to get busy? Historically, what is the volume? Historically, how many bodies did you need? Historically, what was your peak productivity? Saying we're just going to have all hands on deck, that is the kiss of death, right? If you can't explain why everybody has started at their exact times that you have them planned for, then you're probably overscheduling.
Yeah.
And then the last piece, because this is low-hanging fruit, in my opinion, if you got 3 people starting at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday, you want to save some labor right now, go to your schedule right now. Stagger them. Change one of those 4s to 4:15, the other one to 4:30. Your team's not going to feel it. It's not going to change a thing. But you've just added 45 minutes back into your labor bucket.
Hey, real quick. What if you could identify thousands in hidden profits, optimize your food and labor costs, and know exactly what moves to make next to grow your restaurant business, all in less time than it takes to drink your morning coffee? That's exactly why I created the Restaurant Weekly Financial Tracker. It's free and available on the link that's in the description. Grab your free copy now and focus in on your restaurant's profitability today. And let me say one other thing too, because I love that. But here's another one, how we as owners and managers actually affect the productivity of our team. So picture this. If I said, hey, Nathan, I need you to prep 10 cambros of tomatoes, and I need them right now because we are going into an extremely busy rush. If we don't get them done, we're going to run out and it's going to destroy our service. I need them done in the next 30 minutes. Okay? You're going to work a certain way. Or I could say, hey, Nathan, I need you to do 10 cambros of tomatoes, but it's been super slow. So like, if you could just have it done like sometime by the end of your shift tonight, can you get those done by the end of your shift tonight? Which person is going to work faster? The one with the time limit, right? Because they are going to change how they work based on the time allotment they are given. And so as management, when we're tasking things out, people will meet our expectations one way or another. It's based on how we set them as to how they adapt their work to the time that we've set. And so I just want to make sure that we understand that. And you might try and be nice to them, be like, hey, it's like, yeah, it's totally fine. Like it's, it's been slow today. We would try and want to make them feel better that it's not going to be that busy, but then they work less hard. It's just a human thing. So that's one quick tip to do on there. All right. I know we've talked this one to death. Talking about turnover and training. What about that?
All right. So listen, turnover, as I define turnover, I got to say it, I guess, is losing staff, losing managers, losing staff. They've quit. You've had to fire them. They stopped showing up, whatever it is. Training new staff is one of the most expensive things that you're ever going to do. If you have, or if you're not tracking your turnover and don't have strategies in place to hire better, to train better, to coach better, to lead better, to ensure that people are doing the job, getting the tools, they're the right people to do those jobs, then you're going to have a turnover problem. So if you've got, I don't know, in my restaurants, I think our target it always had to be under, I think we got it down to like 15%. So over 700 employees, it's pretty good. So it's different for everybody. But to train somebody, spend the time hiring them, interviewing them, doing their orientation, bringing them in, doing their training. Probably they're not very good at their job, so you got to schedule a few more people around them as it goes on. Then all of a sudden they get pretty good, and then they disappear. You've just spent thousands of dollars finding this person, training this person. The food probably hasn't been great. The build times it probably cost you some sales, maybe.
Yep.
And now you got to start that cycle over again.
The average is like $1,500 roughly is what that costs.
Yeah, per employee, right?
Per employee.
They're proficient. And I think that's modest, quite frankly.
I think so too. I mean, when you start to get up to some like higher level people and training them as well, maybe they take a little less time to train, but they cost a lot more during that process too. So I think it's still pretty conservative, but hey, it's attaching a number to it. And another thing I've known too is like you can never. Here's what I've learned: you can never meet your labor targets if you are constantly hiring and training. And when I say that, because you should be having your targets built in with some of this hiring and training along those lines. But I would say if you're constantly unexpectedly hiring and training, it's always going to add 2 or 3% to your labor budget. Mm-hmm. Right? You're never going to get down to where you possibly could in months where there's literally no hiring and training. So just for funsies, go back to your P&L and look at the months where you weren't training anyone and weren't hiring anyone. Find out what your labor was versus when you were hiring and training. There's going to be a difference. Now, the last thing we'll talk about on this from a turnover perspective, because I think if you're wondering, okay, well, how do I know where my turnover is coming from? A couple quick tips that you can do is literally go back to your payroll reports, because every payroll, like employee payroll system, should have their start date and their termination date, right? Or whenever they left, whatever it's called for you guys. Just go back and see, okay, what amount of time was that? 2 months? Was that 1 month? Was that a week? Was that what was that? And I want you to find the median in that, because what I want us to predict is, okay, like maybe you had some people that left after 2 years, but maybe the bulk of your people left after 3 months. So then if the bulk of the people that left after 3 months, then that's where the problem is that you need to solve. You need to figure out why they were leaving at 3 months and what you can do to fix it. Right? Was it a hiring problem? I would say at 3 months, it's not a hiring problem. I would say if it's like less than 6 weeks, it's probably a hiring problem. But past 3 months, probably not, unless you end up firing all of them, which is a little bit different. But the point is, the next thing we need to do is also ask them why they are turning over, why they are leaving, and have those conversations. So if you're going to find when the problem is, and then find out why and what first got them to think about leaving and finding a different employment, find that piece of information out, then that's going to give you the ammunition to make the changes to your business to start improving your hiring and training. Actually, we actually have a whole episode on this too, if you haven't seen it yet. So we've got much deeper into that. So,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Exit interviews are probably as important as reference checks, quite frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing too, is we don't want to know like why they, because we make up all these excuses in our minds like, oh, well, they just couldn't hack it. And it's this stupid reason. But usually that's not the reason they first started to look for other employment. And you want to find what the first thing was, because sometimes it actually isn't that big of a deal. Sometimes it'd be like, well, maybe someone didn't show up and they had to work really hard one night and then they didn't get recognized for it. So therefore it kind of, they got a little salty about it. And then it just, became a bigger issue over time and they never got over it. And then that's what led to it. So maybe that was the thing that we need to fix, right? It could be, but we don't know until we ask. And I think that's the most important thing to do. So looking now to budgets and controllables. When you talk about budgets and controllables, the hell are you talking about?
So these are those points or those expenses, let's say, in a business that we don't look at very often. Are they going to be huge numbers? Maybe not, but you're probably overspending somewhere in this category. And what I mean by that is, listen, we all know sales fluctuate. Sales go up, sales go down. We've got higher schedules at certain points, lower at others. When was the last time that you took that information and looked at things that you're ordering that might just be on a cycle or a contract? So what I mean by that are mats, are your grease trap cleaning, are the volume of linen that you're buying, the volume of things like tinfoil you might be buying, how much cleaning supplies you're buying, how often, I don't know if I mentioned this, your garbage is being picked up. All of those things we kind of take for granted because we think that they are a cost of doing business, but they are a cost of doing business at very specific volumes. So what I would say, and what I think can probably put some money relatively quickly back into your pocket, is, when sales are going to drop and you've looked at your schedule, you've done your forecast, sales are going to get into, let's say, January, well, you better change your linen pars. You better change how often your garbage is picked up. If you've got 2 grease trap cleanings scheduled for January, but listen, at this volume, you only need 1, cancel 1. Save that money. It might be $100 here, $200 there, or $1,400 here and there. That's money that's just going to go right back to your bottom line that you would have spent and never thought about. So the reason why I put that on there is that it's not just about food cost and labor and training and the things that we always look at, sales or whatever. We got to look at things like office expenses. How much paper did we buy? Do we need that box of Staples? Right? And it might be as kind of simple and ridiculous as that. But if you're not looking for all the holes, then you're only ever going to address the big ones. And 5 or 6 little holes can be more damaging than one big one, quite frankly. Yeah. It's the death of a million cuts, right? So
100%. So let's think of it this way. So I remember back when my restaurant was struggling, we weren't making money, we were in overdraft, we had to jettison some expenses, right? Because we just weren't going to make it. And so here's what I did. I printed out my bank statement. And I printed it all out. Now, I would actually recommend printing it all out because crossing shit out actually is pretty helpful instead of just doing it on a computer or on your phone. Print it out. This is what I would do. So anyway, printed it out, and I went through line by line on every single thing that went out of my account, every single bill that I paid, and I asked 2 questions to it. First question I asked, is it making me more money? First question I asked. Okay? And so I'll give you an example, like my marketing spend. Is that making me more money? Well, I could prove that when I did this marketing, I got this result. So yes, that was making me more money. However, the Cisco food that I was buying, technically that wasn't making me more money, right? There was not, I buy it, I don't make more. I'll get to the number 2 here in a second. Or let's talk about a telephone line. Right? The telephone wasn't necessarily making me more money, or my internet wasn't making me more money. So then the next question I asked after that, if it's not making me more money, is it absolutely necessary, as in you can't operate without it? And so, food orders obviously can't operate without it. Rent can't operate without it. Telephone can't operate without it. So now here's the next thing, is that if it does not meet those 2 criteria, that it's making you more money, and that is absolutely necessary, that it does not belong. I mean, I remember having like magazine subscriptions. There's nobody reading a magazine, right? Why did I have this like $20 a month magazine subscription, right? I was in a QSR and I literally had the TV on because I wanted to watch it. I was paying this $100 a month cable bill. I'm like, well, I don't matter. That's not making me more money. That's not why people are coming in here. But again, like say you're a sports bar. Yeah, that's different. That is making you more money because, you play this, whether it's the, football packages or whatever, yeah, you're going to make more money, get people more on game days, right? But the point is, if it's not making you more money, not absolutely necessary, then it does not belong on your P&L. It means it needs to get cut. Now, for everything that is absolutely necessary, the next question is there a way you can get it cheaper? So that's the next thing. So I literally crossed out all the things I needed to cancel, and then I highlighted in yellow all the things that I needed to go. And I went and I renegotiated a better phone bill, right? Saved me $30 a month, right? It took me an hour, but saved me $30 a month over the course of a year. That's what, $360. Okay, that was worth my hour of effort to do that, right? I got the internet cheaper. I went and negotiated a better linens contract or whatever the case might be. You go in and you say, is there a way that I can get this cheaper? Now, the reason we ask these questions is, number one, you don't want to kill the golden goose that lays the golden eggs. If it's making you more money, you need to keep it there. Like the marketing spend you do, like I'll give you an example, like even at Ownership, we still hire coaches for our coaches to work with them. I know that ultimately makes us a better team and ultimately makes us more money in the long run. So that's not something we cut, right? But on the other hand, maybe, free donuts at the office, maybe we cut that. I'm just kidding. We're actually virtual and we don't have an office. And Nathan and I both probably eat way too many donuts in the run of a day. Point is,
don't need that.
Exactly. Although donuts are delicious, don't get me wrong. But having said that, is there a way that we can get things cheaper? How do we keep the things that need to be there and that make us more money and cut everything else to run lean? Because expenses are like fingernails. Every so often, they need to be trimmed. And this is a process that I have done probably every 6 to 12 months. You go back in and you're like, oh, what about this software subscription I signed up for? It's kind of like all of those, like if you have Netflix and Amazon Prime and also Disney Plus and also Paramount Plus and also Hey You for reality. Like there's so many of these like little subscriptions and you don't even notice it because it just goes off like your Apple or whatever, right? It just kind of comes off. You don't even notice it. Like, okay, $10 here, $10 here, $10 here. Eventually you got to look at that every so often and be like, hey, maybe I need to trim this down. Because before you know it, there's a couple $100 going out and you don't even remember why and don't even use it anymore. I probably still have a subscription to like the History Channel app because I watched one documentary and they gave me a 14-day trial and I never canceled it. I bet that's probably still there. And that's the same thing that happens with our restaurant. So if you're not doing that regularly, and if you're struggling for cash, do it right now. That is one of the things that saved my business at one of its lowest times. So these are 5 ways that we covered today that will basically help you save some money because you're probably paying too much for them right now. So Nathan, thank you being here. And guys, I hope you guys found value in this, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Go make some money.
This episode is brought to you by Ownership Training, where we help restaurant owners increase their profits while spending more time with their family. And if you want to know exactly what it would take to grow your profit margin to 15% and beyond while spending more time with your family, my team has a few spots open this week for a free 15-minute restaurant assessment call. Just click the book a call link in the description and we'll show you the exact frameworks we're using to help our clients do this in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.